Well, the frogs are back, so I think we know that we're getting closer.
We're inching closer and closer to spring lawn care. Some of you down south have already been enjoying this. Some of us up north have just a little ways to go yet. But today I thought I'd go over some of the top tips for early spring lawn care. First thing would be to check on your equipment from last season. Make sure you have everything running. Oil changes done, your blade sharpened, all of those things. Now, I know a lot of you are probably moving to battery-powered equipment, and I do have a battery-powered mower too, so make sure all your batteries are set to go and are working correctly. But don't overlook with those mowers as well, making sure that your blades are sharp, checking out the underside of the deck and making sure that's cleaned out and not all full of a bunch of grass and stuff from last season. Just get everything in tip-top shape, and if you want to go the extra mile, you can go ahead and detail your mowers and do all that fun stuff like I have done in the past. I haven't done that yet to my machines here, and I'm not sure if I will get to it this season before we get started. A lot of stuff going on here very soon in this next couple weeks, but that is an option too if you want to do a nice clean on everything and start out the season fresh. So the second thing you can think about would be a soil test. This is a good time in the spring when you haven't applied anything yet to do a soil test, see where you're at on things, and if you've never done one, this would be a great time to do it. I get a lot of questions on that timing of soil tests and when that can be done, so early spring is a great time. As long as the ground isn't frozen anymore, you can go ahead and go out and get your samples. I have a video on this from last season. I will be doing a soil test up on my new front lawn because I have not done any analysis of that soil up there, so that'll be coming up soon if you want to see what I'm using and how I'm going to do that soil test. But from last season, I'll be using the same kit that I used, so go ahead and check out that video if you'd like to get a head start on that, and if you want to check out what soil test I'm using and how easy it is to look at the results and all that stuff. Next thing is thinking about pre-emergent or seeding, or what you're going to have to do in this situation. So for those of you who might be new, pre-emergent can be used to prevent some grassy weeds like crabgrass, foxtail, things that are going to start to really take over a lawn as soon as you get to the summertime. You can easily prevent this by applying an application in the earlier spring before all this stuff has a chance to germinate and take over your yard. But the thing that you can't do with that, if you would like to plant some grass seed in the spring, is put down that application and then think that right away you're going to put down some grass seed, because those two things don't go together. The grass seed is not going to germinate because of that application, so you need to make sure you have this planned out and decide which one you want to do. Now, this is a question for a lot of people. Should I do the pre-emergent or should I do the seeding? Is there any way to do a combination of those two? I did a video last year on this topic if you'd like to check that out more in depth. But in general, you just have to make a decision for yourself. Are there a few spots you need to fix with seeding? Can you go around those and not put your pre-emergent there, but put it on the rest of the yard? Yes, you can kind of target where you want to do that if you need to go that route. But otherwise, you know your situation best, and just go with the decision. And know that even if you don't put down a pre-emergent and you do need to do some seeding, there are some other options post-emergent, which means spraying some weeds after the fact, that you can do to take care of things in the early summer too. So it's not like if you miss this pre-emergent application, your whole yard is just going to be full of weeds and there's nothing you can do about it. Also remember that the pre-emergent doesn't prevent things like clover and other broadleaf weeds that might come up like dandelions. So those things would have to be taken care of post-emergent anyway. So now we get to talk about spring seeding, and if you have a certain situation like me this year where I don't even have a front yard in right now and I'm going to have to put something in there for the spring, we're going to be going over all of that this spring as I start to plant all that stuff. But sometimes there's a situation also, you have some winter damage or things that need to be fixed, and you just want to get a head start on it and not have a bare yard all the way until fall time for cool season grasses. So if you've decided that you need to do some seeding, just please remember, do not put down that pre-emergent application beforehand, or that's going to last for a couple months at least, usually on the minimum applications, and you're not going to be able to put down that seed and have things succeed. So if you've decided to seed, then make sure you get that ahead of time and have that planned out. A lot of people get right up to that seeding window and then they don't have their product and they're scrambling to get all that stuff. So prepare for that. If you'd like to know more about grass types and what you should choose, I have a video on which grass types for cool season lawns and which ones are best for different scenarios, so check that out. Also, I have plenty of videos on how to seed, but as I said, coming up very soon, I will be seeding my front yard, so stay tuned on how I'm going to do all that stuff as well. But just know, if you do the seeding, there's a lot of content on my channel about this. It's something that I have enjoyed doing over the seasons, whether it was spring or fall. But also know that if you're doing a spring seeding, make sure your expectations there that it may not go absolutely perfectly because you have summer heat coming. You have a lot of weed pressure that can come in on this early spring as things are wet and you're trying to get that seed going. Also know that you can fix things in the fall, do an overseed again, and most likely this is going to be the case anyway because fall is the ideal time for seeding. The conditions are a lot better for cool season lawns, but getting a head start in spring is not necessarily a bad thing. Just make sure your expectations are in check there. A common question that a lot of people have too is, when should you start mowing your lawn? Should you get out there and start to mow this thing down? Well, you're going to notice obviously when the growth starts happening and when you look outside and you notice that you need to mow. But for us who want to get out here a little sooner, really what I do as a rule of thumb, I have tested this over the years and started earlier or later, and as long as the ground isn't frozen, you can pretty much go out and do some light mowing if you need to, or you have the itch to do it. But I would say what I look for is I wouldn't like to be out here mowing this and then at night it gets back down to about 25 or below, somewhere in there where you're getting another hard freeze. It's not necessarily that it's going to kill anything, but you're just putting some stress on the lawn that doesn't need to happen because those grass blades are going to get frozen again, and then you're just causing more brown on the grass that doesn't really need to happen as green up is happening naturally. Also, in relation to mowing, you don't need to go out here with cool season and scalp it all down. You can go slightly lower maybe than where you ended up last season, and that will reveal some more of the green that's under there. Maybe get a little more light and airflow down to the roots, but you don't need to set your mower as low as it goes and just buzz everything off. But maybe just a notch or two lower than where you were at the end of last fall should clean up the tips of the grass, make things look nice for that first mow. How about spring fertilizer? This is another common question that I see from a lot of people, and I also see a lot of people go out and buy a bag of fertilizer and put it down on the ground really heavy right after winter comes because they think that there's been all this time of winter when it hasn't been fed, so I need to go ahead and go out there and put a whole bunch of fertilizer down. But for cool season lawns, you're building your lawn in the fall time, you're doing that fertilizer program, and you're getting things strengthened before winter. So you don't need to come out in the spring, put a whole bunch of fertilizer down unless you want a lot of excess growth. In spring for cool season lawns, there's what's called a flush. That just means that the grass is coming out here. It's going to want to grow really aggressively anyway once those temperatures warm up and it gets back into ideal conditions for it. So adding to that by putting down a whole bunch of fertilizer usually just means you're going to get so much growth that you really can't keep up with it, and that's not what you want. So I'll be going over some of what I do in the early spring very soon. I did a video last season on some of the things that you can look at for early spring fertilizer, some of the best methods and types of products that you can use so that you're not causing too much excess growth, but you do get some nutrients back in the ground or onto the grass and get it going for the spring season. So I'll have a video coming up really soon. I'm going to start in on some of the liquids and solubles coming up and explain that and what I use those for. But in general, if you didn't do any fertilizer in the fall on your cool season lawn, you can come out in the springtime and get an application on it, but also remember to really keep up with your mowing if you do that, because you're going to need to keep up with that excess growth. And if you did a fall application or maybe more than one, then you shouldn't need a whole lot of granular fertilizer going on the ground here in the spring. That's typically also why I don't use a pre-emergent that has fertilizer in it, because the timing of those usually needs to go down and ends up causing some excess growth. Another tip is going to be about spring dethatching. I've seen a lot of this around this area already where things have not even come out of dormancy, and I see people going out there and trying to tear apart their yard, get all that brown material out and clean it up for the spring. That can be pretty aggressive on the grass when it's not even fully greened up yet. So if you do need to do a dethatching, you actually have a legit thatch problem there. I would wait until you've mowed maybe a couple times in the spring. Then you can use your dethatcher to remove that, and you'll have a little recovery time here before you get to the summer heat. Fall would be the best time to do this, so if you can wait and do that, that would be good. But if you're just looking to clean things up, thin out some of that brown material that's in there, I would still wait until the grass starts to green up more, not come out here after it's just been frozen for all those months and try to tear into it right away. These plots right here now are a couple seasons old, and they are starting to get thick enough, especially bluegrass, which tends to get really thick, but also this rye here, that texture-wise, we'll talk about that this season as we get going. You can do some things to make sure that everything is growing evenly and it's looking the way that you want to. We'll be going over how I might come through here and comb through this a little, clean it up a little, but I don't want to be doing that right when it's just starting to green up. So as I said, if there's a question you have, check the search button on my main channel page. I've done so many videos on so many topics over the year, it's very likely there's something out there. But if you have a question or a video topic you'd like to see, leave a comment down below and I'll see what I can do here in the early spring to get to these. Got a lot of stuff coming up, really excited about this season, so thank you so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.